Welcome to the Next Play podcast. I've got my part-time co-host, Candace
Just stop. Cieslo.
Cieslo. And we have a very special guest that Candace is going to introduce for us. So, Candace?
Yeah, well, thank you for that, Tommy. Today we have the privilege of having this wonderful young lady. Her name is Sydney Staier, and she also happens to be my niece. Sydney has played at
So how is she your niece now? I mean, I know how nieces work. Is she your brother?
She's my brother Michael's daughter. Yeah.
Your brother's Michael's. How old is
Yeah.
Mike?
Mike is older than dirt. He's like 55. He's 55.
55. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Yeah,
all right, keep going.
when
Sorry,
you're watching
I told Sydney before we started that I've got ADHD.
It's good for me. Don't worry.
All right, go ahead, Candace.
Yeah. So Sydney played soccer or football, depending upon your persuasion on that, at the University of Maryland, and then she played professional in Serbia, and now she is in Budapest. So I am in awe. She is amazing. This is your third year pro or second year pro, because you have been doing this. You did Serbia and now in Budapest. So
because college felt like forever. So
you're a hero. Yeah.
So where did you grow up?
In Springfield, Virginia, mostly. But my dad was in the Coast Guard, so it was early childhood, Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and Springfield, Virginia, and then we settled in Springfield.
Where is Springfield? Is that near DC?
It's about 30 minutes outside of Washington, DC, yes.
So where'd you go to high school?
West Springfield High School.
Springfield. Now, so you choose Maryland out of high school then? So you obviously were really, really stinking good. Are you a better athlete than your aunt Candace, you think, overall?
Probably not. If it was head to head back when she was in college or coming out of college, I think no. But
you think she was better? What does your dad say?
I've never asked. I've never inquired.
He thinks he's the best. He thinks he's the best.
Yeah. I've never inquired. I don't know.
That's hilarious. So, all right. So Springfield High School or West Springfield. And then you go to Maryland. Wow. ACC. That's the best in soccer.
Well, they moved from the ACC to the Big Ten in.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about
2014. So by the time I was going to school, we were playing in the Big Ten.
Wow. So tell us about where did you so tell us about high school soccer. Did you play club mostly, or did you play high school too?
So Virginia's an interesting one because you are allowed to play club all year round. So in Northern Virginia, the high school season is in the spring, which is not the same everywhere. Some states and even some areas of Virginia, high school soccer is in the fall. But I played club all year round, and then I also had the privilege, because I was fortunate enough to have a high school coach who understood my obsession with the sport, and just the fact that I wanted to play high school and club at the same time. He let his players do both.
Wow.
So there were all of high school, from freshman to senior year, I was playing club, and then in the spring would play on my club team and on our high school team, which was a good time management lesson.
I'm sure.
I love your word obsession. I love that.
Passion is
passion.
Maybe, and another good one. I really use the word obsession very sparingly. Mm-hmm. So I mean it when I say it.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's taken me 2 minutes to realize you're also very intelligent too. So what was your major at Maryland?
I studied kinesiology.
So
I knew, I went in decided with kinesiology into Maryland.
So all that physics stuff with kinesiology and all that junk. So
yes.
I didn't enjoy that piece of it, but did you enjoy the physics?
I'm not a huge on the physics. I did like biomechanics. I did have to take it twice but I did like biomechanics. And but my main focus was sports psychology. So I would call that like my other passion. One of my other passions is sports psychology.
So now that you say that, Tommy's going to have you on again, because the psychology of sports is so much more than the physical. Like, you're born with a certain physical trait, and that's fine. But please don't tell Spud Webb that you have to be 6'5" and to be a great basketball player.
They
Like,
always say with soccer it's 90% mental, 10% physical.
I think that's with every sport. I really do. I really do.
You-
And that obsession and passion and psychology part of it.
That would be a great topic because we could debate that for a long time on
Mhm.
that.
I was super fortunate at Maryland. Our when I was a freshman, our sports psychologist, she founded the sports psychology department at Maryland for athletics. And her name's Michelle Garvin, and she's like my mentor and just such an important part of not only my life but my sports psychology kind of journey throughout the last 8 years.
Mhm.
She I started kind of having conversations with her about in freshman year when I was 18, 19, it was about confidence on the field, and on and off I kind of talked to her almost my whole career. And she's been just the best.
What would be the
Asset.
main thing you think you learned from her? Like, if you could say one thing that you learned from her.
Uh, that's actually a great question.
You know, Sydney, you wrote that poem. I was actually looking up while we were talking, that poem about in her own words, the body image poem.
Body image. Oh yeah.
Tommy, they did a whole video on this where student athletes across the campus from all of the University of Maryland read pieces of this poem. It's super powerful.
Thank you.
That
Yeah.
you wrote.
That was really cool. Yeah, and Candace, you'll have to send it to him so you can watch it. But yeah, sorry, I'll answer your other question. But I one time was just in my apartment, I think it was junior year, and I've always loved to write poems. Now, it's like it's like watching a show. Like you get into a Netflix phase and then you get out of a Netflix phase. So for me, like certain times in my life, there have been like poetry phases. And one time I just sat down and wrote a poem about like athletic bodies and body image and and I had a meeting with one of our sports dietitians. Um, Thankfully and fortunately at Maryland, we had so many resources, and we had such a complete staff where we could always we were always encouraged to use the resources that they presented to us. So I was having a meeting with one of our sports dietitians who I loved, and I just like randomly kind of brought it up in the conversation, and I read it to her, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, we have to do something with this." And it was coming up on National Eating Disorder Awareness Week, which is kind of coming up. I think it's in February.
Yeah. And that is a huge problem.
Which, mind you, the poem is not about that. It's not focused on that at all. However, it's related. It's on the topic.
I'll send it to you, Tommy, for sure. It's definitely
a lot of people
Can we post it in the show notes, or are we allowed to do that?
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, for sure. She said that'd be okay, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
So I was an assistant at Illinois, and we played Maryland in women's basketball. I was an assistant. So that would have been when did you graduate from Maryland? This would have been
2021.
Yeah, so you would have been like a sophomore, maybe something like that. I can't remember. It was somewhere along the line. But anyway, we got killed. They were
Big time
good in women's
basketball.
basketball. Yeah, she's really good.
No joke.
Yeah.
That coach. So, all right. Go ahead.
I was just
Are
gonna-
y'all okay being Maryland and Georgetown? Don't y'all hate each other?
We're not
Well,
in the same conference. So.
yeah, there wasn't the rivalry, I don't think, back in the 90s. You know, that
Yeah, because they wouldn't play. You know, because John Thompson and Lefty Drizel
Keeps the
hated each other
peace.
so much. Yeah. So Sydney, what all right, so you're at Maryland. You're obviously doing well. Professional soccer. So explained, I mean, you're in Budapest right now, right? So that's where you are. So how does professional soccer on the women's side work? I mean, maybe share the journey of going from being a senior at Maryland to professional, because I am totally uneducated on that. And so I would like to know.
You're not alone for sure. I think that's a question probably a lot of people have is they see people going abroad and they're like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Um, because you have the NWSL, which is just a straight feeder from college. You go in the draft, or they pick international players.
Yeah.
But it's not as like simple or cookie cutter as going into the NWSL draft in the US and getting drafted and playing in the US and playing the NWSL. So there are a ton of different whenever I talk to like kiddos who are asking me these questions, I'm always like, there's so many ways. If you ask anybody, every single person's story is different.
So did you get an agent? Is in the agent like
So
like in basketball, it all comes down to the agent overseas, really.
yeah, well, that is one thing that's important. It can be super important. However, you can also do it without.
Yeah.
It just depends on your connections. Everything ever just is about connection and who you know and who knows this person and who that person knows and who this person can talk.
You know,
Yeah.
you say that. I just watched this story on something, and it was talking about nepotism, how big it is right now in Hollywood and all this stuff and businesses and etc. But sports, you can know people, they can open the door, but you can either play or you can't play. Like
Yeah.
your family and connections are not going to get you on that field. Now they can get you through the door, but you, Sydney, persevered to get where you are. It was your heart, your dedication, your work ethic. That has got where you are. You know, there's no quick, easy button on that. Am I right?
Do
Or
that? No. Okay. That's true in most ways. But on that note, yeah, I mean, I think it's just the connections will get you opportunities and it's your choice whether you're gonna go for those opportunities or you're not. And I
absolutely.
think, of course, it's so almost cliche, but I think everybody knows that it's true. If you don't take the risk, you'll never go there.
Mhm.
So I think everything, like the biggest successes, even like anyone can say that they had to take a risk to get anywhere.
Mhm. And the
Like
resiliency.
nobody, yeah. So
We talked about this, how failures actually help you grow. And you've been through some interesting stuff.
adversity, lots of adversity.
Mhm.
So going back when I was a senior in college, at Maryland, well, actually going back to when I was like 13, 14, I knew I've always wanted to play in Europe.
Mhm.
Always. Like since I had when I was young, maybe 10 or 11, my mom, she was coaching my team at the time, and she brought this 20 something year old Dutch coach who um played semi-pro in Holland, and he was just like all of our eyes were like, oh my gosh, like he came from overseas, like he's this tall Dutch man, and that was kind of, I think, one of those things where I was like, okay, wait, I do want to play overseas. This guy came from overseas, and it kind of like maybe planted the seed and was like, okay, wait,
Mhm.
I think I want to do this. And so, and my friend, I think most people on their teams usually have like, your one go-to person, your dynamic duo of sorts. So me and her were always having sleepovers talking about playing professionally.
Yeah.
Always. So in Europe.
And you ended up getting hurt though. Like, did that propel this like desire, this dream to go overseas, like being injured?
What, in college?
Yeah.
So luckily, when I was growing up, I was the least injury prone person ever. Thank God. The best friend that I just mentioned, most injury prone. So we were just two sides of the same coin. But yeah, in college, no, I would say a huge thing that propelled me towards my like dreams, goals, reality would be the coaches that I had at Maryland.
Oh wow.
The assistant coaches that I had at Maryland. Because the first thing that we kind of did as freshmen and then continue to do each year was like seasonal goal setting. And I said since freshman year, since I got there, I want to play professionally. This is something that I'm super serious about. And one of our assistant coaches, Manya Makoski, she played professionally in Finland, and I think, if I'm wrong, sorry, Mons, but in Finland and Iceland. And so having somebody on staff who had kind of already, is older than me, but she's done that before. So having her as kind of a guide and like another trusted mentor on staff was huge. And just having her belief in me, like I'm coming in as a freshman, maybe I'm not the best on the team, but I know I want to play professionally, and not everybody, you can be a top 10 recruit in the nation and still not want to play professionally. Something can happen or you can go in and say, okay, college is it for me. And then I want to pursue whatever I'm studying, So not everybody goes into college sports with the goal of playing professionally. So I think
let me guess your position. I'm going to guess your position. You are either a goalie, midfielder, or striker.
You got it. You're getting close.
I would say you're probably I'm gonna say center mid. No, am I right?
Yeah, in my heart, yeah, but right now, no.
What are you playing right now?
Sometimes I play winger right now.
Yeah.
But there are a couple games that I've been playing like a 10 or an 8, like attacking midfielder. So I love being in the middle. I love being in the middle. So you're spot on with that.
Yeah.
But I do play on the wing too, so.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Tommy, do you talk a lot about goal setting?
That's fascinating. That's a great question. I believe in habits in the process more than I do necessarily goals. So not that I'm against goals, but I just think that habits and processes are what really leads you to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And I'm sure Sydney would, say that. I mean, but ultimately though, she had this at 13 years old, this goal, this desire, and she ended up making it. That's incredible. I mean, that's really rare. It's really rare. I mean, my stepsons want to play, every eighth grader wants to play professional football or basketball, and no one ever does hardly. So, yeah, it's fascinating. So, you talked about failure too, Sydney. The way, Candace, I define failure is quitting or not learning from your mistakes along the way. So, whatever, if you don't reach your goal, whatever that is, I don't consider that failure unless you quit or just, yes, it comes from a Kobe Bryant video. Failure doesn't exist. But anyway, so
100%.
goals are interesting, Candace, like to me. Like my wife said, so what are your goals for this year for your company? I said, so that sent me into a big long lecture on process and habits and all those things. And she tuned out about a third of the way through my lecture. But
I will say I'm not necessarily one for like New Year's resolutions, but in the grand scheme of, I don't know, I would say like athletic goals back then, especially setting those like, okay, well, a couple times a week we're going to do this, or So it kind of like, it definitely tied in those like habits into, I would say, into the goals.
Yeah.
Um,
Because playing overseas, I know a lot of guys that have played basketball overseas, and it sounds great, and it's this great goal, but also you go somewhere where you don't speak the language, the culture is completely different, and a lot of the teams in basketball, at least, are terrible. So the guys that are Americans, they're by far and away the best players on the team. And so it's just different. And I would think and I know the best soccer in the world, correct me if I'm wrong, is played in the United States on the women's side. So you guys, there's probably some pressure on you. So it's not like, the men's side are you calling it football or are we calling it soccer? Which one, what are we calling it over there? You got to call it football over there, right?
I do, because it feels unnatural to say soccer in front of a lot of people, and in front of nobody else who says soccer.
In Budapest, how many people speak English too? That would be a question I have.
Um, so a lot of people, so more people in Hungary than Serbia
Yeah.
speak English. However, a lot of it depends on comfort level.
Yeah.
Like it's their second language. Some are more comfortable than others. So, when I first got here, it was kind of like Serbia, but when I first got here, people were not speaking English. Like
Yeah.
maybe 5 people on my team were speaking English to me. And a lot of people were like quiet, or I would ask them questions and they'd be like shy to speak. Granted, a lot of my teammates are like 17. So there is that factor too, that like the age, like shy, like being a little shy, because I'm in my mid 20s.
Yeah.
Um, but now I think I can talk to everybody on my team, and I think I could get coffee with almost any of my teammates right
Yeah.
Wow.
now.
Is your
Um,
coach, does he speak English?
so we have a full coaching staff of women, and the only male on staff is the goalkeeper coach. And our head coach, she speaks English. Our assistant coach, is good at English. Our fitness coach is working on it, and our
What
golf
language is practicing?
Hungarian.
And so that you're just learning drinking from the fire hose, huh?
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's how
Hey,
it was
Sid.
in Serbia too.
Yeah.
Where were you in
Hey,
Serbia? Were you in Sarajevo or were you in or
I was
Sarajevo? Where no, it's not Sarajevo's not in Serbia. It's don't say
Belgrade.
Belgrade, that's it. Yeah.
No, I was in Subotica. It's like the most northern, actually the city that's like almost closest to Hungary, but it's the most northern city in Serbia.
That's a beautiful place, isn't it? Serbia. I don't think people realize how pretty.
There are a lot of things to see in this. It's just this region is so rich in history. So
So
there's
what does a week for a professional football player hold? Like how many I mean, how does that work? That's fascinating to me. I know
so
nothing.
Monday to Monday mm, will be, well, it depends on what day the game is. Um, so if we had just so Saturday to Saturday, if we just played Saturday, we'll have an off day on Sunday. Um, and like a rest day Sunday. You don't have to go into the academy at all. Monday we have training usually in the late afternoon around 3. Tuesday we have 2 sessions during the day. We have a gym session at 10:30 or 11, and then we have a field session at 3:30 or 4. And we stay at the academy and we eat lunch at the academy, and we're there like all day. And I get home at like 6:37. Um, Wednesday we have training at 10:30. Thursday we have training at 10:30. Friday we have training at 3 usually, because our game on Saturday is usually around 2 or 3. So it like mimics, the day before the game mimics the same time as the game.
Is there a
Hey.
men's team there at the academy too, I guess, or is there?
There is. Yeah, they're pretty good, I think. They were just in Spain for camp. They actually played the Vancouver Whitecaps, the MLS team, in their preseason camp in Spain. They won.
So what does the rest of your day hold when you're not training, when you're not, so you've got what, go ahead. You know what I'm trying to ask. So,
Well, my off days, usually I go into downtown into the city and see something.
And
I
explore.
like today I went to go what was that in Candace?
Oh, I just said and explore. I'm sorry, I didn't realize I said that out
Yeah.
loud.
No, yeah. And like just explore. Or last week I got coffee with my teammates. We went to a cafe and sat and chatted.
Problem with having your aunt on this as one of the co-hosts is I know you and I know what you went through last year. And if you don't mind, I will set this up by saying you almost died.
Yeah.
Like that's serious. Like you almost died, and the resiliency that you showed. And I wanted Tommy and the listeners to hear this because you could have quit professional football. I mean, you would have had no shame in that. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Like kind of what happened and then kind of your resiliency, where you dug that grit from?
Sure. Yeah, this could be a really long story, but I'm gonna keep it short.
Yeah.
So basically what she's referring to is at some point in August, I had been here in Hungary for like about a month. I got developed rhabdomyolysis, which is basically when your body is working more than it's resting. And a specific workout in the gym on a 2-a-day in preseason kind of did it for me. And basically my biceps were swollen to the nth degree, and I had to go to the hospital and spent 4 days in the hospital just on 24/7 IVs. So my mom and my grandma flew out here they left Saturday. I went to the hospital on Thursday. They flew out Saturday, got here Sunday, were with me that whole week, and then my dad flew out and then was with me for the next week.
But you
So
couldn't walk or anything.
I couldn't the problem was I couldn't really use my arms. So and like everything was exhausting because my body had just like kind of tried to minorly shut down a little bit. So um I I think the thing that would put it into perspective is like I couldn't take a shower by myself. Like my grandma and my mom helped me shower. So then it was just a process. Like it was okay, talk about goals and habits. Like the goal for today is walk 10 minutes. So it kind of brought me all the way back to bare minimum. First, get healthy, get the swelling in my arms to go down, drink a lot of water.
did you stay in Hungary for your rehab? Did you stay there? Did you come back to?
Yes, so it was a conversation in the like when I had gotten out of the hospital, like that week and the following, what I wanted to do. But the club was like, my coach were like, you can go home if you like, basically like do what you want.
Yeah.
And the thing was like it wasn't necessarily safe for me to fly with the pressure change and all that. Like so I almost couldn't go home unless I was like airlifted home. So yeah, so I decided, and it was one of those where I'm like, I'd rather just the travel day back to the States and back to Hungary is a monster. I can't even walk 45 minutes, let alone travel 12 hours throughout the day. Like kind of like it felt like the only option is to stay here anyway. So yeah, so I ended up staying, and I didn't even have an apartment at that time. Um, so with my parents each, we were in a hotel, and then I ended up staying with a friend that I have in Hungary who plays for a different club north of where my club is located. So I stayed with her, and she helped me kind of nurse back to
Was
health.
that physically one of the hardest things you've been through? Like with the recovery?
Yeah, I would say physically,
Or mentally even
yes,
maybe?
but more like mentally, you don't, it's different. There's protocol for a sprained ankle. You tear your ACL and it's 9 months, and everybody knows exactly what's going to happen throughout those 9 months. But with something like this, there's not so much research on it, and certainly not as much research in like this area, this region, and not as much familiarity. So it's just kind of a guessing game. And with rhabdomyolysis, the recovery is like, it's very much individual.
Mhm.
So it's hard, and kind of part of the point, the problem was that I know how to push myself, and I have my mentality. I can go past the point. And that was the problem. It ended
Yeah.
up being the problem, is that like with my mentality, you give me a fitness test and I'll just do it. Like I
Right.
don't care if things get hard. Like I really, really do know how to push myself past the point.
And in
So
this situation,
where do you think this grit came from? This desire, this resilience from I mean, you had it at 13. It's obviously
um
these setbacks have these obstacles have made you tougher and you haven't given up.
I mean, I would just say like my parents, because they've always told me like, you can do anything. So I think maybe I really took that to heart. Like they have always encouraged, like my brother, he works for Call of Duty right now, and he's always wanted to be a game designer, and he is. So he so I think both of us kind of got that from them, because they've always said, okay, you can play club soccer, we'll pay for it. Like they've really enabled us to go for our dreams. They were like, okay, well, Corey, my brother, you want to go to this internship, like apply for it. And he's the youngest one there. Or, it's kind of that just go for it mentality. And I think that kind of just trickled into sports for me, and for both of us, just believing it's possible. Um, so I think, yeah, shout out, shout out to the fam.
That's good. So
yeah.
what about you've got this grit, you've got this resilience. So what about, you're obviously intelligent. How do you not overthink things? How do you in the heat of the moment perform well under pressure?
One thing that my Michelle definitely helped me with from the beginning, was that short-term memory. Like something happens on the field, and yeah, you lose the ball in the field. Okay, you have 3 seconds to win it back, and then you have 3 seconds to forget about it, because the game is 90 minutes at least. So that's each minute. There's several plays in each minute. So you're talking. I'm not a math major, but yeah, you're talking lots of plays in this game.
So how do you flush it though? I mean, sure, it's easy to say, hey, don't let one play affect the next. But the reason why I have a job as a mental performance coach is so few people are able to do that. So how do we teach that? How do you flush it? How do you fix it?
um, Practice.
Practice in your head. Practice your
Yeah,
self-talk.
but practice. Yeah, self-talk is a huge one. Self-talk, we worked a lot on self-talk throughout my time at Maryland.
What would you say one of the best things you learned there was?
At Maryland.
Yeah, like for self-taught.
Um,
While
I
you
mean,
think about that, Candace, I've started using this new analogy. It's a metaphor. I don't know if it's a metaphor or an analogy, and it's kind of gross, but so your brain's kind of like a toilet, and you need to flush a toilet. You need to flush pretty quickly, correct? Because if you don't, it's going to get clogged up. So you better flush the toilet. So it's this whole been talking about flushing the toilet because the more it gets
with your
clogged,
thoughts.
yeah. Is that a metaphor or an analogy? You think? I think it's a metaphor. Anyway, you better flush the toilet. You
That's
gotta flush.
actually, well, I won't forget that. So that's a great way to get that to stick in someone's head.
I feel like it's worked well so far, even with female athletes. So I talked to
You know,
57 volleyball players yesterday, and I felt like they thought it was good. So, all right, back to you, Sydney.
yeah, that's a good one. Oh my gosh. Well, I think Michelle and I have talked a lot about, so I will say she's now the sports psychologist for the Detroit Lions. So she's legit. She's the best. Like she knows
She's
what she's
working
doing.
today. She's got a good job tonight. So
Yes, she
they're
does.
going to need a good sports psychologist to beat,
She's a
San
real
Francisco.
professional out here.
That's
So
all.
yeah, but we talk about like keywords. I don't necessarily use that as much. I would just like, I don't know. It's actually really hard to describe because um
Yeah, it's
like,
important because people don't know how to do it. You've probably trained yourself to do this so much that now it's kind of like, I don't know, I just do it. I don't know, I'm just
well,
awesome.
because I think too a part of it is like when I am playing well or like I feel good, you enter that flow state. So you're not really thinking. You're like,
You're in autopilot, like you're driving
yeah.
almost.
So it's easier almost to think about the games that aren't going well and you're not in the flow and you're like, when is this game when is this game over? Because it's not really working. It's like it's easier when things aren't going well to be like, okay, something's got to change. And then that's where it's kind of that self-talk of, all right, you have 3 seconds. Like, all right, if you feel yourself zoning out kind of or like looking at somebody who's walking by or like like it's just a refocus, learning kind of how to get yourself refocused and like having those key points of refocus, whether it's looking at a specific teammate. Maybe you talk to a specific teammate and you're like, hey, if you see I'm not doing well, shake me up, clap for me, be like, hey Sid, like let's get it going. So you can also like rely on your teammates, I think, too, for that. Which maybe was a big thing in the university and in the college game for me is relying a lot on my teammates saying sometimes it's even maybe not even picking a teammate. I think a lot of times something that helps me now that we're talking about it, it's coming back. Something that helps me is like if I feel out of it or like I'm not feeling the energy, you know how sometimes in the game you're just like it feels a little flat.
Mhm.
Like being okay to be that person who's like, "Hey, let's pick it up," is okay. Everybody needs somebody like that, and every team needs more than one person who's going to bring the energy back up. So for me, I think if I feel myself being a little bit quiet, if I start talking, I mean stop talking. Like one of my key things in my game is if I'm vocal, if I'm talking to my teammates, if I'm calling for the ball, if I'm saying man on, if I'm saying all this stuff and I'm talking, those are usually my best games because that means I'm completely focused on what's happening in the game. If I kind of feel myself start to be quiet and just watch and like I'm not calling for the ball as much and I'm just kind of watching everything happen, then I'm like, usually I notice and I'm like, okay, I got to snap out of it and I call for the ball. Hey, pass me the pass me the ball. Like something, it has to be something where I'm like, okay, wait, I haven't talked in a while. And then that's usually a key for me.
So
Um,
almost it's like getting outside of yourself a little bit, showing some energy, helping your team out, helps your own
Yeah.
head in a way.
And usually that helps everybody involved, the
Yeah.
team and yourself, if you can be the one to kind of check back in.
Yeah.
It's nothing, it can't hurt anything really.
So how about making a mistake? So first of all, do you want to be so let's say you're in, do y'all have PKs or you just have ties, don't you? Y'all don't do PKs.
We do
Correct.
PKs depending on the format, like if it's a tournament cup format or a tournament format, or maybe in a friendly if
Yeah.
we've decided we need, like the two teams have agreed they need to practice them.
All right. So let's say we're in a tournament and you're down 5-4 in PKs, whatever. If you miss the PK, your team loses. So what's going through your head right there? I always use this when I work with the soccer team. So
Usually I pick my spot. Usually I know where I'm going before I get there, but I'll watch the goalkeeper and
what are you thinking when you put the ball down? Or are
uh
you thinking? How do you clear your
Yeah,
head?
do you freak out
usually
thinking that,
while
oh my
I'm
gosh,
watching,
everything depends on
yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
won't BS it. I usually, if I'm watching and usually I'm like about the third PK taker if I'm taking one. I like that right in the middle. But it's perfect. But yeah, if I'm watching and it's not going so well, I'm like, shit.
Yeah.
But it's not like a discourage, it's just like, okay,
Yeah.
like I know what it means. It means I have to then make mine. But if we're down 5-4, that means somebody already missed.
Yeah.
You don't strike me as stressing too terribly much.
No, on the inside, I'm a big chiller, but on the inside, it's way stressed depending on the situation.
So
Well,
how
Like
you control
outside,
that is
I'll always look and appear calm, cool, and collected, but on the inside sometimes is chaos. But on the
wow.
outside, it's always calm, cool, and collected.
How do you control your body language then? How do you do that?
Kind of the same way as like how I was just saying, like I realize when I'm not talking.
Yeah.
If I'm you like in the game.
Yeah, your Candace is the body language expert. And anyway, and
I
I'm
think
huge on body language too.
I
But
think that's something that's been really ingrained on me since the youth days. Uh, like one, my parents, they were both athletes. My dad at the Coast Guard Academy, and my mom played soccer at Virginia Tech. So they, they coached growing up. My dad coached my brother and I in basketball, and my mom coached us in soccer. So them being coaches were always emphasizing the importance of body language.
yeah,
So for me that's always been something that I'm very aware of, and like even in high school in the youth days or you name it, I'd be like tapping my teammates like, what
yeah,
do you think? Like fix
yeah.
it. So yeah, that's been really important for me. And then even just I think having when I was in high school, we did a little kind of like mentor buddies training thing where like we were like maybe 14, 15, 16, and these kids were like 9, 10, 11, and having the opportunity at a younger age to be in that like coaching kind of role, like training role, I think also translated into like my game, because you know what coaches are looking at, especially if you've been in that kind of role yourself.
Yeah.
Um,
so
and
learning through coaching.
yeah, I think maybe that's one thing. I don't think it's like a key. I don't think it was key in that maybe, um, but I do think that's helpful too. And any
How do you deal with the pressure of you're a professional and you have to perform to keep your job? I mean, how do you
well,
deal with that pressure?
I
That's
was also gonna say, I think another thing is like being evaluated, even in my first like ODP camp was when I was like 9 or 10, like 10, 11 or 12 or something like that. And as a youth player, especially in the DMV, you're kind of feel like you're always being evaluated. And so when you see those kind of critiques, or like you see the criteria for it, some of that criteria is body language. It's, yes, it's the physical part, but then they have like your soccer part for your touches and your, skills and all that, and then they have the communication, body language, attitude. So attitude and body language have always been like a thing that we've been made aware of since we were young. So, and anytime you're going to a tryout, or whether it's a youth level team, whether it's a high school team, whether it's a new club team, growing up, you're always going to tryouts. If I'm in, even still, like when I was going to this team in Hungary, they host trials, and players have to go on trial before you're offered a contract. So it's a professional tryout. So it's the same thing, really. And you're probably being evaluated on the same things you've been evaluated on since you're 10. So it's nothing really new to be evaluated on body language and that sort of thing. Because it's no secret that they're going to look at you and your attitude.
That's powerful. That's great advice to young athletes, obviously. What's some more advice you would give to young athletes? Let's say a high schooler wants to play professional soccer, a high schooler wants to build a championship mindset, or a college athlete wants to do better at getting over mistakes. I mean, how would you help them? I think you've got a grit to you and a toughness, obviously. But also, I think you probably are also intimidating. Like, I'm a little bit scared of you already. So, and it's just like,
That's so funny, because I'm like so the opposite until we're talking about soccer, and then it's like completely different. You're right, and Candy, that's right. Yeah.
That's right. That's
It's
absolutely
like
right.
so funny to me. I think that's so funny when anybody
She's the
says
sweetest
that.
person until it comes to soccer, and then just watch out.
so you flip
That
that
is scary.
switch. You
It's
flip
just
that switch.
it's something like it's my biggest passion, so it's something that I take very seriously. Like I love it, and it's my passion because it's so 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 fun, and that's the point of it. Like it's fun.
So how do you deal with
But
the
I take
person who has a recreational approach, who doesn't love it like you? How do you deal with that person?
if they don't have the same like passion or love for it at this level.
Yeah. Or even at Maryland, I would think you were different too.
Um, you just kind of find people who will go to the field with you, who love it so much that they always want to touch the ball, or they always want to be, yeah, touching the ball, or
Did the people bother you that didn't love it like you?
a lot of people who didn't love it like me didn't
Make it out of high school.
Yeah.
um but yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of that. It is kind of what I was mentioning before, of some people go to college and play college to play college.
Yeah.
There's not an aspiration. It doesn't bother me if somebody else doesn't have the same goals, dreams, aspirations that I do. That's
Yeah.
not, that's up to you. But it would bother me if you're not performing well. Like, if
Yeah.
you're like, I hate, oh yeah, something actually, this definitely bothered me when it was like, I don't want to go to practice. I hate this shit. I said, all right, well, let's regroup here, because
Yeah. That's where your leadership comes in. Yeah.
yeah, and that's so true. I think it's really important to have good leadership on any team that you're on. It's probably the most important thing. And if it's not top down, then you have to have a good core group of players on the team.
Yeah.
I work with female teams all the time, college teams a lot, and there's so many people like you, but they're in the minority on college teams. there's these 3 or 4 group of athletes that love it, they're passionate about it, they're committed to it, and then they have these athletes that aren't, and it drives them crazy. It just drives
Yeah.
them crazy. So how, I mean, I would think that you probably would intimidate people into doing things the right way. And so how
No.
do you,
Literally never. But it's more just setting an example than anything. Like anything in leadership is examples are important. So and it's kind of sometimes it's pulling that like passion out of them. It's saying, "Hey, we're going to the field. Do you want to come?"
yeah,
Giving them the opportunity because they got to college because they liked it enough to play.
yeah,
So they still like it depending on maybe they have just the worst coach. That's happened for sure.
yeah,
Where we had a coach and this coach really was made it really hard on everybody. Just a lot of people dropped their passion for the sport because of him.
yeah,
And that's something that's really hard to see because it's like hard for me because I love it so much and he's coming in and really trying his best to not help that. And then you have the people who were already on the bubble who are like, wow, now I really don't want to play anymore.
yeah.
Um, and that's tough.
A
And
lot of
people
athletes, yeah, a lot of athletes let their coach take away their love for the game.
and
Since they give away their power is what they do. And you didn't do that. Wouldn't let the guy do that, which is not
uh
surprising knowing you now for 45 minutes. So,
yeah, I think because I think for me that's my goals and my dreams since forever have always been beyond college. And I
yeah,
think that's kind of the key is like I had the light at the end of the tunnel already,
yeah,
but a lot of athletes choose not to. Um which is okay. Everybody has their time where they're not going to play anymore. Um
yeah.
for some it's just in school and some it's not.
So what
Yeah,
is next for you? How many years what would be your ideal playing? You're in, like you said, you're in your mid-20s. So you play to your 55, you play on 4 Olympic teams. But if
perfect.
That's
No,
it.
um, yeah, I'll be in the Senior Olympics when I'm 80. So, uh, so ideally, with sports, you make a plan and you just never know if it's gonna happen.
yeah,
You can, and I think, well, for me, making plans like that, like I can make goals, I can make plans, and I can have dreams, but I know I'm gonna try my best, and maybe it doesn't work out. Seems like every time you have a plan, somebody else is telling you, "No, I have a bigger plan for you. It's not what you
yeah,
think it is." Um,
yeah,
so ideally, I would love to play for as long as I can, maybe until I'm, I don't know, 30. But you never know. The game is unpredictable, so I'm just gonna try to play. The goal is just to see how far I can go,
yeah.
and I have a country or two in mind that I will um consider a successful career if I get to play there.
What's
And
the highest level for, I mean, what is the best,
the
where is the
English
best
Premier
women's
League,
soccer played? What country?
England probably, or Spain. But with Spain, it's hard with the countries here. So in the NWSL, there's more of a consistently high level, but it's still US soccer style of play. But it's good. It's high level. But it's hard to compare. I would love to see a friendly between an NWSL team and like a Barcelona or a Madrid or a Manchester City or because play international players play in all these clubs.
Yeah.
So I would say with the leagues in Europe, it's usually the top half of the league in the better leagues. The top half are super good, super competitive, and then it drops off. So I
Yeah.
think that's a challenge here is with every league you're gonna have your top teams and then it's gonna there's just a bigger drop off. Whereas the NWSL is just more consistent throughout the league.
How often do you get back to the States? Like how long is your season? 9, 10 months? It's pretty long, right?
So it almost functions like in the same way that university season would. So actually that's not true, but the schedule for it. So we have the season is a full like it's like 10 months season. So but we have 3 weeks off in the winter. So I came back to the States this winter and I did last year too. And then we have, depending on if you're staying at your club, if you're moving clubs, like different countries and different leagues have different start dates and different end dates, and it's not every club is starting at the exact same time, but in the summer you have about a month.
Wow. So this is full time. So, and you have an apartment there? Do you live, like, how does that work? Did they provide that for you, or you have a car?
No, I'm actually renting from my captain of my team. She owns an apartment, and so I just rent her from her, and she lives in a different apartment. So
It-
I have an
So do you
apartment.
rent a car, or do you drive around, or do you Uber it, or?
No, the public transportation here actually functions incredibly well. Um, so getting to training, I either use that or I will go with a staff member or a teammate and they will drive. But I don't have a car here. But
How
I
many
don't need a car in the city. It's like living in DC or
New York or something? Yeah.
yeah, kind of. But New York is huge, so
How how many Americans are on your team or on your
just
club?
me.
Just you.
We have
Fascinating.
3 Finnish girls.
Wow, man, fascinating.
And they're Finnish. They speak Finnish to each other and English, but their English is great,
Wow.
for the most part. So
Hmm. Well, Sydney, I've learned a lot, and you're incredible, and I appreciate you being on with us. And it's
thank you for
really late.
having me.
It's really late over there in Europe, so we probably need to get you off of here. So,
Um,
Candace, why don't you finish this up with a final, whatever thought, question, whatever you have.
No, just Sydney Steier, thank you so much for being here. And just your lessons and the thought on how to be resilient and how to kind of refocus. Those are things that you might want to pass on to your nephew, your cousin Max, hypothetically speaking. Um,
so
on just, kind of, and Tommy really focuses on that. Like, how do you get out of that rut? How do you turn it off and go to the next play? Like, how do you find that mechanism that helps you? And you gave me some ideas to pass along. So thank you so much for that. Thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Yeah,
thank you for having me. It's not easy. Anything that's mental, I think, is always challenging, but
yeah.
I've learned a lot through
And
this.
you're gonna send us that poem, and we're gonna put it in the show
Oh yeah.
notes.
Yep.
And how can we
Right.
get in touch with you or watch your club play over there?
I'm still trying to figure that out myself, to be honest.
I bet your parents want to watch, I'm sure. So
Yeah, I can get it from your dad. Yeah. And I sent the
You
poem, so
try. If he
definitely.
does, if he has it, you can try. But when I figure it out, you guys will be the third and fourth
Third.
to know.
that's awesome.
Awesome. Thank you, Sydney.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you
to
for having
those
me.
that, thank you, City. You're amazing. And thank you to those who listen. And please subscribe. Give us that 5-star. If you have something negative to say,
Subscribe.
there you go. If you have something negative to say, just keep it to yourself. So till the next time, we'll see you.
Bye.